Council Williams.
Williams? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Right then, I'll just say, Councillor Dempsey, I do hope that the next few years aren't going to be repeats of that speech every single full council meeting. Because the number of times you mentioned pain in about 30 seconds, I think you're portraying yourself as the anaesthetic, and it's certainly left me very annoyed. So, moving on, the points that were raised. Bus subsidy, obviously, is something where we've talked about actually reducing it down to zero and going for a purely sustainable network. And what we've done is we've recognised that we've actually increased that to £200,000 in terms of the capital budget now. And that isn't just to subsidise routes which aren't going anywhere, routes which are just going to have money pumped into them. I had a meeting over last week with the managing directors of Stagecoach and Thames Down Transport, and they themselves agree the best way to use that money is not to keep subsidising routes where you end up with 3 people who gradually that drops to 2, drops to 1. You're basically using a bus that eventually will have no passengers on it. We've got to find sustainable ways to reinvigorate the economy, to find ways of getting people to and from work, nighttime services, weekend services, so that buses are a viable alternative. It isn't by just spending £200,000 and seeing it go the same way as money before. Also, we're talking about the £70,000 going back into community transport, and that's being sort of tagged onto dial-ride. I'll link this in because Councillor Monto, you were saying about, it did sound like real socialist dogma. Because you were saying, well, not socialist dogma, we were talking about protecting services for the most vulnerable, and all we're doing is looking after the privileged few. And I've got to be honest, that is not true at all. What it is about taking the money and using it most efficiently. We know there's a limited budget, and it's about ensuring that the most vulnerable are the ones that are most protected. And things such as providing excursions, taxpayer subsidised excursions, they're not a part of that, I'm afraid. So that's really what I've got to say. I mean, an excellent job has been done on this budget, and I really would recommend that we carry on support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Spall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well done, Mike, with people who can have a shirt down afterwards. Mr. Mayor, this budget is about choice. There is no difference in the increase in council tax. Both administration and opposition are proposing a zero increase in council tax. The overall spend of the Swindon Borough Council next year is the same with both amendment and the original motion. So this is about how we choose to spend our money. And that's the debate that we're having tonight, which is actually quite unique and unusual for a budget debate, because it's not about just about how we spend it, it's about how much we spend and where particular cuts are going to be taking place. What has been identified, I think, by the Labour group tonight is, again, that we have a different choice to the administration. We believe that spending money on dial-a-ride is more important than having bottled water. Why should people not be able to use dial-a-ride when we could use tap water? That's a simple choice that we as a council are making. You decided to go for bottled water, we would rather go for dial-a-ride. That's one of the choices. We would like to see a reduction in the training budget to support dial-a-ride. We would rather see Plan 500 create more apprenticeships, which will actually see young people in work, in employment, rather than on benefit, and actually see a tangible difference to Swindon's employment numbers, than continue to invest 200,000 into Forward Swindon. Now, both budgets, we've had a lecture from the lead member on this about the work they do, and I'm not arguing with him because he knows the facts probably better than I do. But let's be realistic, we're both proposing reductions in Forward Swindon, so they can't be doing that good a job, whereas we won't be proposing such things. And I do have a fundamental worry about them when they say the people of Swindon want a canal in the centre of Swindon, because everyone I speak to still don't want a canal in the centre of Swindon. So I don't know where they've been doing their consultation, and I think that they must be seriously flawed because of this. The Labour group would rather see £200,000 spent on bus subsidy rather than having as many consultants or our communication budget. And when you put that argument to the people of Penhill and Piners who are having their buses changed or cut, they will say to us, we'd rather see you being put forward on bus service than spending money on consultants. Again, it's a choice. Our choice is that. Your choice is to go for the consultants and the communication budgets. Now, one of us is right and one of us is wrong. Maybe we're both right. We just take it from different perspectives. But I don't think it's right to criticise the Labour group for the choices we've made. We're putting a valid argument up that you may not agree with. And I believe that that is what we're here tonight to debate, is about the choices that individuals want. Can I say I welcome Councillor Alden's comments on welcoming the cross-party working party. I think it is important that we have some continuity on how to deal with debt within this council, and it's to be welcomed. We also, Mr Mayor, look about how the response to Mr Pickles, I guess, didn't like. I mean, you've said, and I know a lot of people in this room would have applauded you, but they're loyal to their party, which is understandable. But that person has done nothing for local government, and he has done greater cuts in local government than any minister, both Tory and Labour, have done over the last 30 years. And he should be ashamed of himself for what he's done to local government, because he has not once stood up for local government. And we're seeing now councils across the country, Labour, Tory and Liberal Democrats, having to cut services that they do not agree with because of the Conservative minister. And why? What does it get us? Nothing. Borrowing's going up, it's not going down. It's going to go up by another 120 million because the 4G auction was a bit short. So, 1 billion. So therefore, we know that this fallacy about cutting services for changing the deficit isn't working. We're spending more. You spend more than was in the Labour Party's time. So if we were a disaster, you're just absolutely rubbish.
30 seconds, Councillor.
So, I go there and thank you, Mr Mayor, in summing up. This is about choice. We believe that we should look after the people of this town by ensuring those who need bus services get bus services, those who want to see potholes repaired get their potholes repaired, and those who want to see their children supported in the most vulnerable areas of our borough actually get that opportunity as well. The choice is yours. We know where we're voting. I would ask you to consider what's being put forward, because there's no extra increase in council tax, there's no extra spending in this budget. It means the same, but just there will be more people benefit from this amendment than there won't be, and it's about pride as well as choice. Your pride of not accepting that there was an alternative which is now being put forward this evening.
Bus number 22 is relied on by many local residents in Old Town. Any proposed cuts to the bus subsidy would have an adverse effect on its users, and particularly the elderly. It is also vital for the businesses in Old Town to be well served by public transport. Also on direct ride service. Direct ride service is reliant on all income streams. Its overheads remain the same no matter how many cuts you choose to implement. The vast majority of excursions are for the disabled and elderly. So if you stop scout excursions, but you also stop disabled groups visits, the choices you're making is to hide disabled cuts under the banner of excursions. You need to tell her exactly to find, to stop all excursions. You need to tell her as it is, and not to use counter stories which undermine the done-the-right operation costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Joseph.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm making notes of some of the most significant things said amongst the lads of the town. Councillor Edwards said there are risks in this budget, and there are. You can't use the new home's budget in the way it has been done without taking serious risks. Bob Wright said it's a budget set in Westminster, and so it is. If you were considering going to the limit that there was in 3%, Pickers did quite sure he did by threatening to make cuts as a consequence. And it's so very easy for him to do. You can reduce the amount that we forget to compensate for a council tax benefit, and it will be completely unnoticeable. And that's why you are where you are. Councillor Blur said we would be roughly in the same place, and he's not wrong. I'm not sure about the Alice in Wonderland bit. I did think that we got Jack and the Beanstalk on at the library soon, and I was listing the 6 beans that were swapped for the fatted calf. I got the Tabernacle Stones. I got 65,000 for a canal in the centre of town. I got Wi-Fi on the town. I feel kind. Gary Perkins talked about no headlines in the paper. Well, there was, but Kevin Small dealt with that. Councillor Bowden's absolutely right. We're in a bad place. I have made a number of notes to deal with what was predictable. One of them I did make. We really are seeking to put forward an amendment. I didn't want to, I have to admit, be part of putting forward an amendment because we keep doing it. You lot keep pinching what we proposed during the coming year, but never mind, we do it again. At last council meeting, I was very nervous about the debate we had about whether the deputy chair of the new fish commission should be paid by Swindon Borough Council. I was nervous. I didn't want to be involved in that because it struck me that his duties will far exceed the duties of, for example, the chair of the children's overview and scrutiny. Far exceed the duties of the chair of the Standards Committee, given that my colleague, Councillor Fay, does most of the difficult things. Were we in charge, we would address how we run this council democratically. It is unaccountable. The decisions of what to do next are made behind closed doors, and no matter which party you belong to, if you're part of the administration, you must support leadership. If you're part of the opposition, you're only opposing for the sake of opposition. It's not the right way to run a democratic organisation. We can do better than that. If we were in charge, we would change it and it would cost a lot less money. That's what that part of our amendment's about. The new Swindon company. It's just nonsense what Gary's been saying. The original New Swindon company and then Forward Swindon, they were the right wagon at that time, the right vehicle to get into Swindon some national government money that was available. And they did it very successfully. An awful lot of money has been spent in Swindon that was generated nationally and brought into Swindon. That system has run its course. There has been no private investment into Swindon produced by Forward Swindon or its predecessor. The bit that is counted as private is actually a housing association, which we, the council, are given £1 million. The rest is coming from the Homes and Communities budget, I think they're calling it these days. It used to be the Housing Corporation.
30 seconds, Councillor. Thank you.
Oh, that's disappointing. I've got so much more to say. However, I will jump to the end because it's quite important, I think. We have a strategy. What is proposed before you tonight by the Conservative administration is tinkering. It's an accountant's budget. What we really need is a strategy to deal with a very bad future for local government. And part of that involves parishes. And I just don't have the time to explain it, but I will to the Chief Executive as soon as I get a chance.
Hey, Councillor Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Moffat said decisions are made behind closed doors. That is simply wrong. Every 2012 we had elections. Members of the public chose who they wanted to represent the town, and they returned a Conservative administration, as they have done for many years. The Labour way of doing things was rejected. It was rejected in 2010, where MPs rejected, Labour MPs rejected, it was the Labour Police Commission was rejected. In the Highworth by-election, after massive effort, I think the Labour Party picked up an additional 7 votes than they did in May. The reality is that the people of Swindon don't want Labour running things. And we might ask, why is that? It's not as if the Labour group never had the opportunity to run this town. They did. And services were run into the ground. And that is a legacy that Swindon Labour can never escape from. We hear about protecting the vulnerable. Adult social care was one of the worst services in the entire country. So was education. And it was an audit commission report which was provided for by Labour government. It is that legacy of failure that you have to deal with. Conservatives in Swindon, yes, times are tough, we know that. Nobody likes cuts, but when a mess has been made, it has to be cleared up. And this requires difficult decisions to be made. I am sorry that there's going to be an impact because of the cuts, but I'm not going to apologise for doing the right thing. We have a legacy of success. Services that they've been rated have got better and better. We delivered the Central Library, that was one of the landmark projects in the early days. Just recently, we've had the announcement on the City deal. That is extremely good news for Swindon. We had an Ofsted inspection, our fostering service, again, extremely good. Swindon, I'm told, statistically, is one of the 5th most prosperous towns in the country. As Conservatives, we have a lot to be proud of. Now, the question's been posed, what about the future of local government? The reality is we know that cuts have to happen. Everybody, I think, recognises that. But what's the answer? Do we go back to the old age of tax and spend in the hope of improving things? That is not a possibility anymore. I think even the Labour Party nationally recognise that. So as Conservatives, what we say in this chamber has been said, that the Labour group are tinkering around at the edges. But for the Conservatives, we don't need to try to convince the Labour Party, because I don't think they will ever listen to the facts on that. But we have convinced the people of Swindon, so it falls upon us to continue to be positive about promoting this town, because that's what's in the long-term interest of Swindon, and that is why people keep on returning us to power. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Keeler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We've heard much about national politics tonight, but actually little about what the implications are for the alternative ideas before us tonight. And actually, Councillor Pajak was right at the very start, where he was saying that the proposed amendment is tinkering around the edges. It amounts to 0.6% change in the Conservative budget. That's 99.4% for some of the other councillors in the room. That's what we're talking about here, where there might well be a consensus about how we deal with issues like the adult social care budget. There are no proposed amendments to that area, so clearly this administration and this council is looking to try and protect the vulnerable and the elderly and do the best possible job. So they try and talk it down as otherwise, I think, is quite wrong for us tonight. And we're very much talking within these 4 walls and not towards the residents. I kind of agree with a lot of what Councillor School said, and I think he's very good in the kind of the points he gets across. But much of what we've heard from other councillors tonight doesn't back up where it's talking about jobs or economic growth or what we're seeing before us tonight. So it's all very good having those kind of talking points, but it needs to be backed up with some kind of substance. It's quite right that there are different priorities in these 2 budgets. One of which is the fact that there's actually no support in the Labour amendment for libraries, and we're looking at scrapping staff training within the council. I think that's quite a clear message on it. We've just heard from Councillor Moffat, who's talking about the council might be unaccountable in how it approaches things. Yet we're proposing scrapping the scrutiny team to committees, and the way we try and run new policies and looking at decisions that this council makes and the cabinet makes. That's probably the wrong thing to do, and spring it on this meeting tonight without any kind of public consultation. And it's worth remembering that the draft budget for this here tonight was first in the public domain over 2 months ago before Christmas, where people could put forward their views and ideas, and that kind of scrutiny hasn't taken place on the amendments that we've had here tonight. The one that is of most concern is for me on this one, is the 50% cut to the Forward Swindon budget, and that's at a time when they are actually dealing with the task force working with major employers around the town, including Honda, to try and sort out the job situation. And I think with the reorganisation, the upheaval that will be required by making those kind of changes, it's probably the wrong time to do it. We can see what happens in the future, but right now I think that is the wrong decision. It would also seriously compromise the ability of the council to try various things, like working with Forward Swindon to introduce a Swindon approach to enterprise zones. And by attracting jobs and new businesses to the town, that's the way we can try and sort out the situation in the town. And that's very much what this Conservative budget is trying to accomplish. And I look forward to trying to work with my colleagues around that. And the other one, which is quite dear to my heart at the moment, is the members' bulletin today. And that's around energy bills and trying to work with the communications team and for Swindon and across the council to try and save over 5,000 households over £150 each. That's actually a scheme that this council probably wouldn't be able to achieve if we actually accept the amendments here tonight. And I will certainly be looking to champion that across the council. And I hope every councillor here will also be supporting that initiative, because it's that kind of role where we need to be talking to residents about something positive that this council can do that isn't just about customer services, and there are other ways in which we can bring communities together. And that's the kind of approach I'd like to see in the budget, and very much why I'm voting for the Conservative one tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Julian Price.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's worth remembering. We've got a top table team of 10 councillors. Councillor Small was absolutely right. This budget, these proposals are about choices. These are the choices that the Labour Party are putting forward. This is how we would tinker around the edges to try and make it slightly better for the people that are going to be penalised by the spending constraints that we've got from central government. And I would urge all members in the chamber to vote for the Labour amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mattup.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't resist making a few comments because I think 2 or 3 of the members of the Labour group mentioned they would look after the vulnerable. Now, can I just remind people that this administration, as far as adult social care, and I assume you include the vulnerable within that group, adult social care, we put £3 million, over £3 million, in last year's base budget. It's in there this year, it's in there next year, and indeed there will be an increase if this budget this evening is approved, an increase in the base budget next year. I'm very grateful for the members cross-party who have joined me in the Leaders Advisory Group, where we debated some of the difficult issues that we all know we have to face, and we have had cross-party support and agreement to the direction we are going in. Now, if you felt that we weren't doing a reasonable job, I'm sure I would have seen some amendment in your budget to increase the adult social care budget. But I didn't see it, and I haven't heard it this evening, so I can only assume that you do believe that we were looking after the vulnerable people in this town, and we will continue to do so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been quite some time since I exercised my vocal calls in this chamber, so you know me if there's a camera in the room. So I hope you get my good side, because the advert got some absolutely corking pictures of me. First thing I wanted to bring up was the Labour's prospective candidate for North Swindon, Councillor Mark Dempsey. Spends a lot of time in North Swindon, residents tell me. So I just thought, you know, as we've got time to speak to each other, I will tonight. One of the things that kind of caught my attention was Councillor Dempsey's comments about cuts in jobs in this council. It takes me to a quote I have here from Councillor Grant in the newspaper, which was published in December. And he said that by using this £1.8 million to retain the staff we've got, at least 50 council officers' jobs could have been saved this year. Now, I don't know if they communicate with each other in the Labour Party. I'll put it to you like this. Councillor Grant in January came and addressed the business community. And one of the things he said to us was that the National Labour Party and the local Labour Party in Swindon had learned their mistakes by having a bloated public sector, and they wouldn't do it again. It's one of their national policies. He did say he wasn't going to bring politics into the meeting, but he did, unfortunately, and I sat quietly. So I'm just going to give my response now because this is the place to do it. One of the other things that Councillor Dempsey said was he thinks that we should be kick-starting the economy in Swindon, and I agree. But one of the other things Councillor Grant said to the business community was that nobody wants to work in warehouses, and it shocked me, because Swindon's history and part of our development in Swindon
Point of order. This is untrue. I never said that.
Is that a point of order?
Moreover, I was at this meeting, I was invited there as the Labour group leader and asked for the Labour group and how the Labour group would go about running Swindon. So I think it's
Point of information, that's not a point of order. Thank you.
I'll continue. He also told us that his administration, when they took over in Swindon, I did
Councillor Martin, can you remember to address your remarks to me, all right?
So, I apologise, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, one of the final statements he made to the business
Will you
community
speak to the amendment? It does come in with Mr Councillor Dempsey's statement about economic regeneration. He said that his administration, if they got into power, wouldn't deliver economic regeneration. But Councillor Dempsey just said they would. And then he said the private sector would deliver it. That's all, Mr Mayor. Councillor, it is difficult for comments where we haven't heard Councillor Grant direct. Thank you. Councillor Roberts, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to ask a few questions. Apologies as well for my bald spot being a right of town at the moment. It's interesting looking at some of the things that people talk about, and a lot of the people speaking have talked about Forward Swindon and defending why we should keep funding Forward Swindon. I haven't heard a huge amount of people defending why we should still spend money on consultants, or defending why we should still not have the management savings through restructuring the senior responsibility. It'd be interesting to see if anyone's going to defend those as much as they defend Forward Swindon.
I'll ready a further speakers. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but as my board colleague has already spoken, I thought I would stand and support her, and also my party. I mean, we did hear a lot about local Swindon politics, and that's what it's about. But I am going to go back to the socialist PPC for North Swindon and his comments about the national issue. Now, you can laugh all you want, Mark, but these are the facts. Whenever you're ready to quieten down. We're recovering from the largest recession since the war. The Second World War, it claimed 83 million lives, and the debt from it we did not finish paying off until 2006. 61 years. We are 2 years after the disaster left by the Labour government. And what do they expect? They expect it all to be bright, all rosy and shiny. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. The former Labour Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, claimed to abolish boom and bust. And you talk about the fact that debts were going down. However, the last Conservative government reduced the deficit every single year from 1992, delivering a surplus. What did the Labour government do? What did the Labour government do? Every single year from 2001, every single year before the recession, they increased the deficit. When they left government, it was £156 billion. You talk to us about economic competence. I think you should look at your own history books first. Labour equals more borrowing, it equals more spending, and it is worse for the worst off in society. How many jobs did Labour create in 13 years in the private sector, or help create in the private sector? Just over 800,000. How
and we as the coalition government created, or helped create, in 2 years, over 1 million. Well, I'd much rather have a part-time job than live on the dole. Whereas of the 800,000 jobs created, additional to 800,000 jobs created, more than 650,000 jobs were created in the public sector. They are non-jobs, not part-time jobs. I would much rather support my Conservative Party, even if I have disagreements with them, which I do discuss in private. Are you really claiming that in private you all agree solidarity forward? That's it. I'm going to support the Conservative budget, and I urge everyone else to as well.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a point of order, please? Whilst I am more than happy to enter into political debate about the national economy, and I do that with Mike on a regular basis, and I've got no problem with colleagues on either side who part of their contribution to this debate, putting it into the national context, because I think that's quite fair. But what I do think is not fair, is unfair, is that we are here to debate the budget and there's an amendment, and I think that's what we should be debating and should concentrate on. I've got no problem with Councillor Elliott wanting to have a go at us, and I'll get my own back on him some other time, but I do think we should make sure that whenever the debate turns back to Swindon Borough Council budget, rather than a debate on national politics and the national economy, because I'm sure we can have a great bit of fun on this and not achieve what we're here to do, which is to decide the financial future of Swindon.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Small.
Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Small. Your point of order has been noted.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor. Sorry. Just. Am I allowed to
Councillor Edwards to wind up, please. The evidence. Hold the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was accused at the very start of this conversation about this being a very sombre presentation to council, and I thank everybody for the nature of the debate tonight, because I think it is a very sombre tone tonight. I thank also the Labour Party for coming up with a set of proposals. I also like to thank the Labour Party for coming up with a proposal which gave their choices and their options for against our budget. It's difficult for all of us, and to appease Councillor Bolton took my thunder, but I'll do it just for the record. I don't like the cuts being made by Mr. Nichols on local government. I think it's absolutely really tough. My caveat on that would be, I do understand. Much of the debate tonight, unfortunately, has been about government, what government's done, what government isn't doing, how government's working, local. And actually, we need to bring the debate back to Swindon. The fact is, there's less money in the town to spend, and we have to choose the best way to spend it. We have a lot of talk here about hitting the vulnerable. I really don't think we should use the vulnerable as a political football as we have done in this chamber tonight. And I'm not talking anybody individually here. I think all of us collectively have to have a responsibility towards the people of Swindon. In looking to the amendment, I was asked and challenged to look about management costs and savings on consultants. So I'll talk to those two things. We have slimmed our senior management team in the council down to the point where it's just about sustainable. There have been a significant number of management costs that have come out of this council. My concern is that we take out more costs, we'll end up in a situation like Group 40 just before the Olympics. We have to be really, really careful that we do not slim this council down beyond the point where it doesn't become sustainable. And in terms of consultants, I did find one comment I did find slightly uncomfortable with this concept of consultants first. I can assure you it's not consultants first. We don't have the details of the consultants that were due to be cut in the Labour amendment. But, you know, we have consultants in adult social care, road safety, bridge safety, treasury. There's a whole group of specialist skills that we need to bring in, because it's not sustainable to hold them within the council. It is not a consultant-first culture, but it is appropriate and right to bring consultants in when there are specific pieces of work that needs to be done. Moving forward as a council, I do think there's an opportunity for us to work closer together. I don't think it's fair to the residents of Swindon that we work officers incredibly hard to come up with a budget which we propose in December, and then work weekend hard to come up with a set of proposals that are put before us tonight to debate. We have got to find a better way of having dialogues. I have not taken on that challenge this year. Moving forward, I think the challenge that both sides need to come to the table and have a far more robust debate throughout the budget year, not necessarily just in this chamber, but wouldn't it be great if we could come to a position and a consensus in some way about delivering a budget right for the people of Swindon. Tinkering was used a number of times. This budget was just tinkering. Who was tinkering with this budget? I think we've got to grow up beyond that. This is not about tinkering. This is not about playing with people's lives. This is about people's lives. This is about the people of Swindon. I think we have to take a far more mature approach on all sides of the chamber to how we manage the budget moving forward. It's going to get really, really tough, and we've got to make sure we're prepared for it. I do not think at the current time we are in a place where we can look at the impacts and the outcomes from this budget. I do not think we're in a position tonight where we can accept this amendment because we do not understand the impact and the outcomes. But I do agree that moving forward we should find a better way of working together and delivering the budget to the people of Swindon. Thank you.
I propose to move to the vote on the amendment. All those in favour?
Indicate clearly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All those against?
Call down government action. Only two of them. Marvin doesn't stand for honourable. Thank you, ma'am.
The amendment is lost. Councillor Payjack. Any other amendments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I actually have the pleasure of actually giving you two amendments. I actually give you one and you get one free. The first amendment, actually, as you have down, that's your budget amendment featuring the localities, which actually is on the yellow sheet, you have it there. A budget debate is not a pantomime, but if it was one in Swindon, it would actually have Keith Chegwin playing the lead. And the driving force of the coalition, as I think it's been alluded to, has actually more been about solving the debt crisis we've actually found ourselves in under the previous Labour government. Now, our budgets don't offer a great deal of excitement. I think that was actually reflected by how many people actually were involved in the consultation, actually gave responses. It was less than 50. We've actually now reached a very grave period in our time, but people find it very hard to be enlivened actually by the national and local debates around government. But what happened with localities actually did what we all alluded to. The idea of giving more power to local people. The idea of actually giving councillors a role in life. The cabinet system has always been against that. The idea of actually the power is in the hands of a small group. Localities changed that and gave more power to councillors, i.e. in their localities. And it was a good thing. The idea of actually giving choice to local people with councillors involved. That was what localities is all about. Now this amendment doesn't change it a great deal. It actually does increase the localities budget to 461,000. £461,000 as opposed to £400,000 caused by the cut. And that will allow localities' needs to carry on. The idea of the champion of localities. I've been a councillor for a long time, and this is probably the best thing I've ever seen. I've always believed in the idea of actually having more power to the local people, and this was an element of it. The idea we actually sit around and got local things done, there's actually projects, funding for charities, and getting people involved. Localities have been a real success story, and we need to be sure that happens by adding this additional funding. It doesn't create a great deal of change, but what it does mean is the same 7 localities leads can carry on, so their role will still be there. They will continue to lead projects, troubleshoot, and get councillors' wishes done. And I believe that's what this council should be all about. We allude to One Swindon, we allude to actually getting people involved. And I believe the localities are one of the best things we ever did, and I think it did have all support. So this small amendment will actually allow that to happen and carry on the best way possible. And I urge you all to support this amendment at little cost to the budget.
Can we have a second of this? Do you want to speak now or reserve?
I'll speak now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I rise to second this amendment as I believe passionately in localities. There's an elderly lady on my ward who's partially sighted. She lives on her own, but she loves to get out and about. Indeed, her social life is probably more active than my own. Luckily, she has a bus stop opposite her house. Lucky, that is, until you discover that that road is Kings Hill Road. Living near the top of Kings Hill Road, she needed to walk all the way down to the bottom of this long hill, cross, and then walk all the way back up again. She is one of hundreds of residents who have asked this council for a safer upper crossing point on Kings Hill Road. She and her neighbours have been asking this for 25 years, and it's twice been rejected by this council in that time. When localities were created, many were dubious, but what quickly became apparent was that locality leads were skilled people. They knew the system inside out, and they were able to help ward members achieve positive change for our residents. 25 years on, and there was finally a safer upper crossing point on Kings Hill Road. And this is just one of the many areas effective locality leads have helped deliver for the people of Swindon. Since their inception, my experience is that the council is viewed much more positively by residents as a listening council and as active council. We are moving to amend this budget to protect 7 locality leads that have strong links to their localities. I urge you to support our localities. Vote for this amendment today to send the message that we are a listening council. Vote for this amendment today to send the message that we are an active council. Vote for this amendment today so that we can work with residents to harness their dreams, harness their ideals, and share a way forward for all of us in Swindon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to speak to this amendment. Many years ago, I went to a conference of the Union in the Isle of Man in 1977. Brother Jack Jones told me, stop whinging about the Labour Party, go and get involved. And I say to the enemies of parish councillors, stop whinging, go and get involved. Parish councils may one day soon be the last bastion of local democracy. With the localities, we have an opportunity to build on what we already have in the non-parish rate to create a kind of democratic accountability for local people, exactly as the mover has suggested. For that reason alone, I support the amendment. In fact, as I say, where I come from, you would say, I support it for different.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Finney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was going to be quiet this evening, but I think with this amendment, I think a lot of us would agree here that we've definitely got this one wrong. And I totally support your amendment and actually very much agree with all the words that Councillor Symonds has just said. I think you got it very much to the point, and I'm glad that Councillor Moffat has just supported it as well. And I think that They was agreed with the principal. I think the last 6 months could have been better. We all got a bit ambivalent about it. But if anything, this cut has made everyone go, well, actually, hang on a minute, they're just starting to find their feet. I actually do like what they're saying. So I think if anything, the locality leads, and I totally agree with the 7, I think the locality leads will be invigorated by this show of support that we've all given. And I think we'll also, hopefully next Monday, go into it very differently, because I hope everyone will support this. And I hope the message, obviously, in consultation has still got to be done and carried through and agreed where it's going to sit. But I hope that the message that will go through loud and clear to those locality leads is, yes, you are wanted by this council. Yes, we're prepared to support you. And let's work together, work on the good stuff that was done. We get a great example there. And I know in our ward, in Justin Lawn, we can go show good examples. And I had a letter today from a resident of Lawn that's never been motivated to sort of write to me before and said, I actually think they're great. They've been coming along to the community centre, and actually, I think, you know, quite a stroppy letter from her about how much she wanted to keep them. And I thought, well, gosh, if it's motivated her to put pen to paper, that alone, to me, was such a sign today that this was such a mistake. So I think it's really highlighted how we all feel about it. And I think that they're going to be stronger now than they have ever been before. And I think we'll get off to a great new start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members, from what I've heard so far, can I guarantee put it to you that you put it to the vote now? Somebody's there, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. And if I can start by talking completely off the subject, I have put recommendations into the governance working party that all of future amendments to the council are notified to all councillors within 24 hours advance, because I think we get ourselves in a terrible muddle over amendments that are put on the day. However, in the spirit of cooperation and conciliation and whatever, we are going to support this motion, largely because we do feel on the Labour side that localities are the future of Labour are the future of local government. I would like just some clarification on why the figure 61,000 we want to put back into the budget.
So it means the 7 locality leads can carry on.
Yeah, the 7 locality leads can carry on. Okay, I would like there to be perhaps an ongoing discussion with the governance working party on if this is implemented, so we can make sure that the arrangements do work, and that we might want to, as Councillor Moffat points out, trying to get more engagement with parish councils in our locality scheme. But if Mr. Mayor, if I'm going to be the last speaker, then we'll support and we can move on.
As the chair of the corporate working party, Councillor Root, please.
So just 30 seconds, just to say I support that, because if we're supporting the amendment, we've got the budget, we just need to all agree amongst all of us how we really make this work next year. I think there's growing realisation that this is really vital to deliver the future. So happy to work through the corporate governance and with all councillors to get there.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favour?
Can we not spend any more new homes on
Any against? Any abstentions? Any further amendments?
I'm going to say a phrase that when you're on a roll, I remember the Green paper. This actually alludes to public transport. We actually did talk about that, and I think it was actually well spoken about by the Labour group as well. What this amendment does is actually to put that £200,000 in there to ensure that actually what we do to support public transport, the idea of the social and environmental aspects are all there, We know that some of the people who use buses are the people least able to actually provide any other form of transport, whether it be car or anything else. So public transport is vital. And the idea of making it accessible, not just on the commercial routes, but on all routes where it may be environmentally important, I think it's crucial to actually support public transport. And therefore I urge you to support this motion. I've already rehearsed all the issues you talked about public transport, but I think this will do it. Support this amendment, and therefore we will see that public transport continues what we always wanted to. The phrase I've used here about social and environmental factors, or what actually exists in our transport policy, which I know Keith was actually involved in. So it does exist there, and what this amendment does is actually make sure it carries on. To have those factors involved, allow this funding there, and we continue to public transport by this council to actually all our benefits.
Who is seconding this amendment? Do you want to speak now? Or...
Just briefly, to support the amendment and to say that in my ward there are numbers of people who would be very isolated if the buses are not supported by something other than economic considerations.
Councillor Edwards.
Whilst I completely understand the sentiment behind here, but my concern is not necessarily around the proposed funding. We've already had the discussion there about the risk in the budget and the fact that we are using a significant proportion of new homes bonus to support the budget. And we have to look not only about this year's budget, but sustainability. I do not think we're in a position, from a risk perspective, and get another 200,000 of funding, one-off from the new home bonus, and with a standard in the budget we believe we can take into the future. I completely and totally and utterly get the idea of buses. I'm just incredibly uncomfortable. This is the right way to fund this.
Favor to the vote?
Well, Ray out in here. I'm going to support the lead member for resources on this for exactly the reason he states. We are into the new homes bonus to such an extent that we're in a bad place. And anybody who thinks anything other than that is living in cocoa land. Oh yeah, if you accept some of the reductions and amendments that we put forward earlier in order to fund this, I'm all for it. But just to take more money out of new home funds is not the right thing to do.
Move to the vote, all in favour?
Mr. Mayor, that's twice I've had my hands up, and twice you've moved to the vote.
Councillor Wright, I do apologise, but sometimes people get in your way.
10 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to keep it very short as well. We've had a discussion over dial-a-ride and the cuts that affect the vulnerable. I would like to go back to that one. I would like to support this one as well. As long as the money isn't affected in the way that's been suggested by the Cabinet member and also by Councillor Moffat. The amendment that we put forward should provide the means by which you can find that money. And if you can find a way to pick out the bits that will work for you, that's the way to do it.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to support this amendment on the grounds that basically it was in the Labour amendment. We do want to save the buses for the reasons that I gave in my speech. Now, to be paid for here out of the new homes bonus, I would have hoped that we could have found it from the savings that we put forward, and I would be very keen on the administration looking to find the money for this proposal out of any other savings, but if needs be, I think we'll have to take it out of the new homes bonus. Even though I think, as Councillor Moffat has said, the new homes bonus is not you know, yeah, it's not a bottomless pit, and if we're not careful, we will, you know, none of this will be sustainable in 1 or 2 years' time. But I think that for that 1 or 2 years, I think those buses should be saved, and hopefully we can come together to have a proper strategic bus strategy which works, and hopefully we won't need the subsidy, this particular subsidy in the future, but at this time we support it. Thank you.
Councillor Ben.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Mr. Mayor. Since everybody's on the roll and clearly so supportive of the buses, and we've had some slight flexibility, can I ask whether we extend the flexibility so that some of the rural areas that haven't had buses for a very long time should now be considered as appropriate destination for some funding of their own? Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Going back to, I remember Angela, I think it might have been the first time I actually met Councillor Dempsey, it was a comment he made about how much money things have been spent on things. It's not about how much money you spend, it's about how you spend it. And just subsidising inefficient routes is not the way to make use money well. Obviously, there's £200,000 in there. Go back to Councillor Grant, who's not listening. No, hello. Listening now. Right, what I'll say is, I agree with the sort of things you said there, actually. We do need to find a sustainable way of moving the buses forward, and actually finding sustainable methods, potentially reducing that subsidy down further, is absolutely the way to do it, but it is not to continue subsidising routes which are used by very few people. We had an example of one route being paid out of Section 106 that we put a stop to, being subsidised to the tune of about £46,000 a year to carry 7 people a day from Winchelsea to Horton. Let me finish. Okay, that, the bus company said, we can't actually do it even with a £46,000 subsidy, we need over £80,000 subsidy on that. And to be honest, that's fallen by the wayside. It's about spending money wisely, not spending it foolishly.
Councillor Bishop. Sorry, beg your pardon, Councillor Crabbe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't realise I was that way. I'll make it brief, Mr. Mayor. I won't going to come in on this tonight. But it's so rare to have the lead member and Des Moffat both saying the same thing. Those of us who've been involved in listening to the discussion as the budget process has gone through know how hard it's been squeezed and how restricted it's been. And for the lead member to be saying he really is not comfortable with it, and for the opposition member to say the same thing, I think the council should take note of what's being said. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can we move to the vote, please? All those in favour?
On the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
On the amendment, yeah. And those against? Members lost 28 against. 26 in favour, 28 against. But I'm correct.
I make it 25-28, so the rows of hands are waving a little bit.
Are there any other amendments? In that case, we're now back to the substantive motion. Does anybody wish to speak on the substantive motion? If not, Councillor Edwards.
I don't think it's anything that we should do to the vote, please.
All those in favour of the motion as amended? Those against?
Got a couple of postal votes if it helps.
The motion is carried. Right, we now turn to minute 93, the page 187, which is posted.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favour?
I've not heard of 30 seconds in it. Well, isn't there? Well, what's this incident in here?
Right, once again, we are now doing minute 93, set out on page 187. All right. Opposed? Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favour? Against? No. Minute 94, I'll take 90. All in favour?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favour? Yes. 95. 191.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favour? Fine. Do we require any adjournment?